welcome back to my channel, The Inked Reader. Today I am doing my July wrap-up. I am filming this a bit earlier in the month because I am actually leaving for the holidays. There is a possibility basically that I'd have finished a couple of more audiobooks, not a couple, but at least probably one, because I'm almost done with it, but I need to film this because I don't have any time after, if it makes sense. So what I'm going to do also that I prefer to focus on chatting about the books and things I've read. So instead of actually reading out statistics, I'm going to just put them on the screen for you to look at. And if you prefer in general for me not to chat through the statistics, but just put them in a visual format, I'm happy moving forward to just put them on the screen instead of going through them. But if actually you prefer me talking through them, then let me know in the comments down below, because I'm adapting basically here to what you guys prefer. So before I start of my TBR, which is of 10 books at the beginning of the month, I managed to finish 7 of those. The 3 that I am not done with and I won't be done by the time I leave, so they'll be carried over September at this point, are gonna be my finishing series TBR. I didn't basically even start at 5 Ways to Fall by K.A. Tucker, which is a contemporary new adult romance book and was part of my ending series TBR. I'll use this as my commute book when I come back in September from work, so I'll read this in September on my way to work and back home. And then I didn't even basically started the fantasy pick, which is The Consumption of Magic. This is one of my favorite series when it comes down to humor fantasy, and it's a very thick, dense book though, and I prefer to prioritize other stuff. And so yeah, probably I'll get around to these in September, not in August because I'm going away, and I'll be bringing other books with me that you're gonna see soon. I pre-recorded a video, is gonna be up on the 1st of August with my TBR from my holiday. And then I will keep reading these until I actually leave in a few days. Columbine by Dave Cullen, but I doubt I'll make my way through all this because I'm also powering through my thesis for my school, so it won't be finished. I will probably finish these either at the end of August when I'm back or in September. I'll go in chronological order. The first one I've actually finished was the non-fiction from June and was the Romanovs by Simon Seberg Montefiore. I also consider these in my Europe TBR as England, and basically with these I read a book by an English author. Although the surname doesn't indicate that, but I checked on Wikipedia. So this is a non-fiction about the Romanovs, the old generations of Romanovs, since the end of the 18th, 17th century up to 1916 or 17, something of the sort, before World War II, basically. And it's a chunk of a book, and it took me like a month and a week to read these. I overall enjoyed these. Fuck Game of Thrones, the Romanovs are the real deal. And the amount of betrayal, family drama, and crazy things happening, that it did read like this cannot really have happened, and instead it did. And it was like, if you like intrigue, if you like anything that has to do with court intrigue and betrayal and all of that, if you like Game of Thrones basically, you're gonna love this if you also enjoy non-fiction. It is a dense read, and I think one of the mistakes that the author does for sure is not only this is very thick and dense, but also he puts a lot of footnotes in it, which takes you away from the story. And it's a narrative full of places, names, years that you have to follow. So again, if you read something like this, where names and dates and things all over the place, and you get very confused and you get very overwhelmed or bored, either way, it's probably not for you, because this is an historical non-fiction. It does read sometimes like a book of history that you might read in high school or whatever, and it's impossible to remember everybody basically. And the other thing I didn't particularly like was that Rasputin, yes, he is definitely in here, but it's such a fascinating character that's not explored much, and I was like, you wrote so much about sometimes useless stuff. You could have said way more about Rasputin and get more into his character, and instead you don't. And at one time I understand that he wanted to focus this on the Romanovs instead of making a book about Rasputin, because he's such an interesting, intriguing character that it probably had become like half Rasputin, while he was not a Romanov technically, well, it wasn't. So I understand the choice, but I kind of feel like I want to know more by Rasputin. But overall, I learned a lot of things. I think that's why I enjoy reading non-fiction so much, is because despite, you know, yes, I took away the story of the Romanovs, but I also learned, you know, First World War, the Jewish pogroms, and finally the end. The end is very hard to read. I knew more or less because I was a big fan of Anastasia, the movie, Disney movie, when I was a child, so I did get a bit informed after a while, a few years ago, on what actually went down. But reading it, it's freaking disturbing, like what people can do to children, and it's just the way the Romanovs end is just heartbreaking. And after spending so much time with them, I was honestly upset and freaking angry with people involved in that. So it's a book that I would definitely recommend. I do recognize though it's not for everybody. You do need to like reading non-fiction, dense non-fiction that are historical. Keep that in mind. I gave this for a full 4 stars. If this bloody man would have left the footnote out. Then I've read Frozen Charlotte by Alex Bell. This is my pick for my horror TBR, and this time I went with a YA horror, and this was fun. This is the story of this girl. At the beginning of the story, she is having dinner with a friend in a restaurant when something very creepy and weird happens that leads to a lot of negative consequences, and she decides to go to her cousin's house in the island of Wight or something. It's like a small island in England where the cousins are living in what was back in the days like an all-girls school that all of a sudden was closed in a rush because of very creepy stuff happening. So basically she knows that whatever happened that night at the restaurant is linked to events that took place in that school or on that island in general, and she goes to her cousin's house and decides to find out what's going on, basically. And this is a page turner. It's definitely fun. I read this so quickly, and to be fair, I had out of books that were more praised and that were more famous on my horror TBR. When it comes down to pure enjoyment, no-brainer enjoyment, I really appreciated these, and I think I've never read any of the other books so quickly as I read these. Well, it's a YA, so it's a bit of a given if you want, in that sense. I did see some of the twists coming, but overall, the plot, what happens to the character, it does feel a bit of like a, not slasher movie, but like, you know, a horror YA movie. And I had not seen one of those in ages, so it felt like being back. But I also liked that it didn't go always where I was predicting to. And overall, I will pick up the prequel. I think there is a prequel to this, and I'll definitely be picking it up, and I'm definitely keeping this my copy and suggesting this to others. For if you are introductory to horror, you don't want to read anything that's too scary, and you can do with creepy dolls, because creepy dolls are a big thing in here. If you can do that, it's definitely a very quick, easy, fun read, and I gave it 4.25 stars. Then I read Making Money by Terry Pratchett. This is the second book in the Moist Van Lipwig series, part of a Industrial Revolution sub-series of Discworld. And well, first of all, I cannot say anything about the plot of this because again, it's not the first in the series. But we meet again Moist. Moist is his first name, by the way. And I love Moist. Like, Moist is one of my favorite characters in the whole Discworld series. So there is a bit of me loving this book just because there is Moist in it, if it makes sense. I didn't enjoy this book as the first installment. I just think that the themes and the weird plot in these was just a bit of less in my taste than the first book it was. So again, it's always funny and clever written, and I will definitely be looking forward to the third, I think, and last installment in the series. I'm gonna miss Moist so much, but it's a Discworld series. I'm gonna do a whole video on that. I enjoyed it. So a very solid 4 stars. Then I have listened to The Betrayal Bond, which is a non-fiction, and that I listened for my domestic violence memoir. It's kind of a final episode for now. I'm definitely gonna add episodes here and there later on, but it's the final one for this season. And it's basically a doctor explaining what the betrayal bond is and how these very dysfunctional and problematic relationships are created. And there is domestic violence in these, in the sense that they try to explain how domestic violence and this toxic relationship happens, but it's also a bit more broader as a topic. I didn't give this a rating because I do want to get my hands on a physical copy and use it some tips and tricks for my job as well, but I would definitely recommend it, and I'll get more into a whole review of these separately on my DV Memoir channel. I'll do that probably in September. Then I've read my non-fiction for July. The Romanovs was a non-fiction pick for June that was behind. This is July non-fiction book pick, and it's Let's Pretend This Never Happened by Jenny Lawson. She was initially a blogger that now writes books. Of course, Eva, you got one in your hands. And it's about her life. It's a memoir about her life, but mostly like the most weird and cringy moments of her life. And it was bloody funny. It was very relatable as someone who's an awkward human being in general and very clumsy. And I could feel, you know, the moment of, oh my god, what did I just say? What did just come out of my mouth? Did I really say that? Because I get that moments in life kind of regularly, so I understand that feeling. And I think overall her life is crazy. Like her childhood, it was so bloody hilarious and entertaining to read. The only issue I have with this is that she makes some comments here and there toward people of other ethnicities that sometimes I thought it was a bit insensible. And with these, I don't mean that we don't have biases, and she was honest in probably putting those in here. However, when you choose one to put in a book or not, I think, you know, those comments would have been left out, those parts or those interactions and her stream of thoughts when, you know, the race of someone was mentioned and used in a joke. Was it necessary? When you've got a public forum, a public media, what you do with those biases, you know that it's probably best not share in the public media because they're not very tasteful and they're not very nice to other people. Seems like I'm over exaggerating this, but it was just literally a couple of episodes and sentences that I thought she could have skipped over, and she does address them. I just thought maybe skip them, and you know, I want to give her definitely more chance to make me laugh in the future, and I gave this 4.5 stars. Then I've read another, I'm gonna put the cover in here 1 second just because I got my cover, I just don't know where I put it. I put aside saying, oh, I leave it there so it stays safe, I don't ruin it, and now I cannot find it anymore. Welcome to my life. So this is a horror, Japanese horror, YA, I'd say, horror, and it's the story of this boy who transfers school after his father leaves for India for work, for job, and he now has to start in year 3 basically in this small town. And when he starts the school year, he realizes that there is something very creepy going on, and a lot of his schoolmates and pupils in year 3 and people close related to them dies off very quickly, and more than average would excuse basically. So it's a mystery of what's going on with year 3, why are these people dying and all of that. So my overall thoughts were this was a bit too lengthy and a bit boring at places. Like, it's kind of slow paced, and when I read a horror or mystery, if the writing is not stellar, which I thought it was just okay, nothing special, doesn't grip me as much as, again, if you had a beautiful lyrical writing or interesting writing would. So I struggled, you know, to make my way through these a tiny bit, but overall I really enjoyed the mystery behind. I didn't see the end coming, I didn't figure out what and who and all of that. That was a surprise, so I enjoyed that. There is also a manga adaptation of this, and I believe 100% that in the manga format this might come across way better than it does in the full-length novel. I don't know if we will ever get around to read the manga, probably not, because I've read these. But if you want to have like a YA horror that has a nice plot overall and it's like a new idea, it's not something I've heard before, definitely, you might want to read the manga, which I think is just 2 volumes out that I know of. A try. And I gave this 3.5 stars. Then I listened to Furia, and I'm not going to pronounce names of authors anymore moving forward unless I precisely know how they are pronounced, just because, first of all, I don't want to make a fool of myself, and this is like something that's gonna stand forever on my channel basically. If I don't know the name of the author, you can read it for yourself. You don't need to hear me butchering it, and I think it's also not nice having your name butchered. My name is Eva, but because I live in England, people call me Eva even when I tell them no, it's pronounced Eva. So as it bothers me so much, I think it's just fair enough that I stop butchering other people's names. After going on that tangent a tiny bit, Furia is a YA contemporary novel that I randomly found on Scribd and decided to listen to. And this is the story of this girl who dreams to be a footballer, to play football in USA professionally, but her family is very much against it, so she has to keep from her family the fact that she does play football. And she has also a ex-boyfriend, kind of, that now is a very famous Juve, the Italian team player. So he used to live there and he moved to Italy to play for Juve, and which is pronounced differently in the audiobook, but it's Juve. I'm Italian, I know. It's pronounced Juve, Juventus. And is, yes, basically him coming back at one point in her life and her struggling to fit in her family life with her dream and finding the money also to move to USA and all of that. So the fact that I could give zero facts about football and I still enjoyed this, it says something. I think it was very well written. I thought it was not tropey for the genre, and the ending I really enjoyed. I really like Camilla, our main protagonist, and I really enjoyed this. And I enjoyed this, I guess, because it wasn't about football in itself. It was more about having a dream and having obstacles to overcome in order to achieve your dream, and about, you know, also being who you are. So the fact that football was there, but it was tastefully done and not only, you know, football, made me enjoy this despite me not caring for the football itself. Definitely will recommend this if you like YA. I've not heard about this anywhere else, but I mean, I don't listen to all videos on YouTube, so I might just have missed it, basically. Definitely recommendable if you like YA. The audiobook was really nice. Overall, very, very solid 4 stars. Then I have read Tunnel French in the Woods. This is a crime novel that I've read for actually my European TBR. So with this I went to Ireland, and this is about these 2 detectives, especially one detective, Ryan, that are part of a Dublin murder squad. Ryan had a history of going to play in the woods when he was 12 with 2 of his best friends, and he was the only one coming back full of blood. And now he has no recollection of what happened in the woods, but 20 years after, there is another child murder in the woods, and so there is a lot of him trying to figure out if the 2 things are connected and resolving the mystery of a child who's dead now. I've got a lot to say on this. First of all, there is a part of me that I want to boycott this book, because this book does something that I cannot tell you because it will be a spoiler, but it does something that you discover only in the end, that when you realize the next books, what happens in the next books and who are the protagonists of the next books, or you go online and inform yourself, you realize that that's indeed the ending. So I thought, realistic, 100% very realistic. And again, I've done a spoiler review on Goodreads, and I'll link it down below, because I explain why I'm so frustrated about the ending. And while I read fiction and appreciate sometimes when they're really close to life, so real life, in this sense I found it very frustrating. At the same time though, I respect the hell out of the author for going down that route, because she must have gotten a lot of hate because of it. And I can justify the hate. I understand the hate and I understand the author, if it makes sense, but I'm frustrated and say, would I suggest this now? I don't know, because if you like a tidy, neat, comprehensive, and you know, you start a story and you finish the story, thriller, in a sense this is it, but in another sense it's not. And I need to be very vague because I cannot go into any spoilers. In terms of the murder you get of a recent child, I didn't really enjoy the outcome of that, in terms that I did see who that guy was, and I also found that there is a huge element of this where he talks about psychopath, and I think they were like almost like a caricature of what a psychopath is, and I found that a bit absurd. Like it wouldn't go down that way. Like I think sometimes it would be a bit convenient, and although yes, overall some notions about psychopath were definitely true, the way that were portrayed, that was so out in your face, and I think they also wanted to be very shady, like, oh, you know, you didn't see this, but I definitely saw that. I knew who he was, like page 1. As soon as we met who he was, I knew it was that character, just because I think the way the psychopathy was done, it was too fleshed out. It was a caricature of it, basically. But it is true that many people that have to do with psychopath, they kind of have that radar than to spotting them easily down the line. That's definitely true. I do like though the writing style. I thought this is a very lyrical, very raw, with a dislikable character, definitely main protagonist, and I appreciate that. So I'm debating at the moment, do I want to continue on, do I not want to continue on with the series? I give this 3.5 stars, and I'm very glad overall that I read it. I just don't know if I'm gonna put myself through this again, because it's very lengthy, slow paced, and the payout is not as much as I wanted, definitely. So the only reason why I gave it 3.5 stars is just because I appreciated the lyrical writing abilities of this author. It's a very divisive book. Then I listened to My Sister the Serial Killer on audio. This is a very short audiobook about these sisters. I think the setting is in Nigeria, and one of the two sisters, the older sister, she's always lived in the shade of, you know, the more young, beautiful and very popular with the boys girl, and even her mother, she favors the younger sister, and she has lived her life kind of protecting her younger sister from all the shit she gets down to do, because she is basically a serial killer, as the title suggests. I didn't care much about these. I enjoyed the ending though. I really like the final scene. Frustrating, but at the same time, it was nice. I categorize it as a YA thriller overall. It's a very easy read. It's, you know, you can read this in probably a few hours and be done with it. And I gave it 3 stars. I didn't hate it by any means, but I guess if we had more build up, there was more meat to the story, I might have appreciated this way more than I actually did. The way it was done, I thought it was very rushed. We get back and forth in time, and we don't have enough time with these characters to actually fall in love with any of them so much. I just despised that younger sister, and I wished it was more lengthy. And finally, the last book I have actually physically read so far. I'm filming this on the 28th. So there are 3 days left in the month, and I don't know if I will finish Columbine. I doubt it. So this is the last physical book for July, probably, and it's The Devil in the White City by Eric Larson. This is the true crime pick for the month of June. I carried that over because I didn't get around to finish it. So Columbine is my true crime pick for July that I'm carrying over probably in August, well, without probably. So why did it take me so long to read a true crime book, which usually are among the first one I read every month? I freaking hated this book. Like, this book was targeted as, oh, okay, we're gonna tell you the story of, you know, the exposition in Chicago at the end of the 19th century, and at the same time we're gonna tell you about Holmes, the very famous serial killer. No. This is mainly gonna tell you very well about the fair, the Chicago Fair that was put up, how it was, you know, originally thought, how it was built up, how it went, and all that. And it's gonna tell you very shitty blend that you can read on Wikipedia information about Holmes. And because I'm here for the true crime, and I didn't know that there was a fair in Chicago. So now at least I know that. But overall, I don't live in Chicago. I'm not a big fan of fairs or weather, so that was interesting only to a certain degree. I don't know anything about Holmes that I didn't know to begin with, so I gave these 2.5 stars just because I think it was just a target and a poor choice by the author. He should have just made a book about, you know, the White City, and that would be perfectly fine. His writing flows very nice. When I sat down and read this, I read this very quickly overall. I just don't think he should have spoken about Holmes, and he should not have marketed these with, you know, Holmes' face in the front cover saying, oh, this is a true crime about Holmes with some elements of the White City and how they intertwined. No, they don't even intertwine that much. No, awful. Actually, I decided that I'm gonna lower this down, and I decided right now to 2 stars, just because this was too frustrating. Like, I'm gonna probably sell my copy. I need to now read something more chunky, meaty, well researched about Holmes. I thought it was just honestly a waste of time. The only interesting thing about this that I learned was something regarding a belly dancer. I don't want to spoil it in case anybody wants to read this and learn one single interesting thing about this. I'm sorry, because I know that the majority of people who read this absolutely loved it, but as a true fan of true crime that has read many true crime in my days, this is not by any means a good true crime. It just felt like they wanted to throw in Holmes to make money, because people would definitely, you know, reach more for a true crime book about a very famous serial killer than just a book about, you know, a fair in Chicago. And that's just the truth of it. They just did it for money, the author, I think. They just want to put together the two things, and it just didn't match well. They didn't combine well. It's like when you do mayonnaise and then it gets fucked up, basically. Thank you guys for watching. I'm gonna see you, well, future me, I've pre-recorded a movie, I know I've pre-recorded the video that you're gonna see on the 1st of August, just telling you about what happens in August and actually asking for your help with like a small meta, which has nothing to pay me in promotion or anything. It's just, you know, your help with my TBRs for next year. Yes, I know it's only July and August, but you know, I like to figure things and prepare things before. So look forward to that. But I've not pre-recorded any other video. I need a bit of a break. I'm still gonna go on holiday and work on my thesis, but it's been a very intense year and I had so much to do in these last weeks, and I was also very sick, unfortunately. So I wanted to pre-record some videos, and then I said, listen, just relax for 3 weeks. When you're back at the end of August, you're gonna be back with videos and all of that. I also have my picks for my book club, and I probably do a whole video on my book club new picks. So you know, just for having ideas about books you want to pick up. So I'll do all of that when I come back. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely holiday or summer wherever you are. Take care, and I'll see you in a few weeks time. Ciao.